So you saw when working with the console, we can have a good time trying things and exploring the data, exploring functions, trying new things. But there are several limitations. For instance, it's very difficult to save our work and reproduce it. If I now had to tell someone else what steps did I take when cleaning the dataset, there's no way I'm going to remember everything. And I'm not even going to be sure at some point whether I did, remove column number 8 or column number 7. And I don't know if I did it after rounding or before rounding, and those details are important. Also, it's very difficult to figure out where mistakes were made and recover, because if I made a mistake in step number 8, maybe I have to redo steps number 9, 10, and 11, but not step number 13, and it's very difficult to really understand the code, the whole context of the sentences that we are running in R without looking at the whole thing. It's very difficult without having documentation to really understand what we're doing. It's also very difficult to keep the big picture in mind. And it's going to be plainly impossible to share our work. If I have to share now the code that I run in R to clean this dataset, how do I do it? I have to start copy pasting lines and trying to figure out in which order exactly did I input those lines into R. So to solve that problem, we have scripts. A script is just a plain text file that contains a series of statements in some programming language like R. And the script contains code that kind of makes sense to have together. So you can think, for example, of a script to clean a dataset, another script to analyze some characteristics of the dataset, another script to produce some visualizations, etc. So things that make sense to have together in the same file just to organize it in a certain way. The good thing about the scripts is that they can be executed as a whole to ease the development of our data science pipeline. So we can just, instead of going line by line, we can just tell R or RStudio to execute the whole thing in one take, and that's it. And they solve all the problems of the console. So let me go back to the problems of the console. It's going to be very easy to save our work and reproduce it and share it because it's just one file. You just save the file and give the file to someone else and they are able to reproduce. It's very easy to figure out where we made mistakes because the whole history is going to be in there with us. It's going to be written in the file. It's going to be easier to understand what we do because we can type inline documentation. We have the whole thing, the big picture is right there in front of our eyes. It's going to be a lot easier to understand what we're doing. But still, keep in mind that for quick things, for interactively exploring data and functions, the console is the best. So let me show you. So I have here RStudio again, and what I'm going to do is create a script. I can do it from right here. I can create a script, and a new panel opens up, and this is basically a text editor where I can type my script. So let's see, I can very conveniently now in the console go back in the history and see that the first thing I did was read the data. So I can just get that in here and start cleaning. So I can type a comment, clean dataset. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do again is renaming the reverse. By the way, there's an easy way to go back and forth from the console and the scripts, which is pressing Ctrl+2 to go to the consoles. Here I am, and Ctrl+1 to go to the script. Here I am, Ctrl+2 back to the console. It's a very convenient way to program in RStudio without having to go to the mouse back and forth. So I know that something that we did was changing the name of the reverse. So let me just get this thing and put it here. Just, so that it's easy to go back to where we were. We did something like bridges location is round bridges location. We just do the same. Bridges length is a round of the bridges length divided by 338. And I don't know, what other things might we be interested in doing? For example, we see over here that in variable purpose, we have highway, aqueduct, and there is some RR, which happens to correspond to rail. But hey, let's have the name rail instead of RR. So let's change that. So what we're gonna do is say bridges of purpose, where the purpose equals RR. We're gonna set that to rail. So what we're doing here is saying, hey, this column for these specific rows, those in which the purpose equals RR, so specifically here and here and here, etc. Let's set the value to rail. So if I run this line, which by the way I can do easily by pressing Control Enter, you see I can go to the console and check bridges, and we see that the RR is now gone and we have rail. So hey, there you have a way to easily go and execute whatever you're writing in the script. Control Enter, which you can also do from here. Or you can select a specific piece of code. Let's say I want to run this, and I don't know, these 3 lines. I can easily run portions of the script in one take. So another thing that I want to do is, let's say I want to filter out bridges that were built before the 1900. So what I'm going to do is bridges. I'm going to select only the bridges where erected is at least 1900, and I also want to get those in which the length is at least 300 meters. So I made some mistake somewhere. Yeah, I missed the comma there. So I'm filtering by rows. And those would be the bridges. Looks good to me. So I'm going to assign all these to the variable bridges so that it's updated. And just like I did before, I don't want to have column number 8. So let me just drop it. That's it. And the result, again, I want to export it in file teaching data 1 labs R workflows bridges clean. Okay, so see, it's now a lot easier to go back and forth in my script and see exactly what I'm doing, why am I doing it, etc., etc. So one thing that I could do here, oh yeah, that's a mistake. That should be 328. See, from feet to meters. Now it's very easy to spot that mistake because it's right there, and I know the context in which that mistake happened, and I know that I could just take the whole thing, run it again, and hey, the file is clean. So now that I have this piece of code, I want to save it in a script file. So I can just go ahead, teaching folder, data 1, labs, R workflows. Let's give it a name, clean.r. So that's my script. Now I can start using this new bridges clean file from now on, and I know that if I spot something wrong, or if I get a new version of the data, or if I want to include bridges prior to the 1900s, I can just go back to the script and say, hey, let's do prior to 1850. And it's that easy. I just execute the whole thing again, and we continue with the analysis. So you see, scripts are a very convenient way of organizing our code and helping us in working in this tedious process of data science.